At the end of last year, I had an offer of an internship at a famous private hospital in the city downtown. Working in the emergency department was under a lot of pressure. I also witnessed many sad and weird stories. One day, a group of doctors on duty was rushing to bring the corpse of an unfortunate patient to the morgue for the procedure. They quickly entered the hospital elevator. Reaching the top floor, which is also the hospital's morgue, the elevator door opened slowly and revealed a mysterious light ahead. They took the corpse out of the elevator, but couldn't stop feeling curious about the appearance of the strange light spot. But when they went along the hallway, it was as dark as usual. The light had disappeared, leaving only one room with the door open. One of them felt very strange because the place has never been visited except hospital staff. If doctors of the hospital were there, they wouldn't leave the door open like that. Although thinking for a while, the group of doctors could not answer their curiosity. Finally, they brought the body inside the morgue. When the door of the morgue was closed, in the middle of the corridor, an old man wearing a hospital uniform suddenly appeared. He staggered in the cold corridors. His eyes were white and his skin was pale. At the same time, the victim's body was also brought inside the room, which was filled with the smell of corpses. Two young doctors stood at both ends of the corpse, which was covered with a white cloth. They slowly brought it to the bed. But when they had just picked up the body, the two doctors were astonished to realize there was only one empty sheet on their hands. They put the sheet on the bed. Indeed, there was no corpse underneath it, which caused the doctors to be extremely worried and confused. After thinking for a while, the doctors concluded that the body maybe fell to the ground on the way there. They discussed and agreed to cover the bed with a white sheet. They pretended that the body had been successfully transferred to the morgue. Then they separated to find the body before dawn. In order to avoid being known by their superiors, the doctors quickly packed up and left the morgue. Three of them continued to push this bed out, walking slowly towards the hospital elevator. After that, they went in to try to find it, but the inside of the elevator was empty. There was no body. But when the door was just closed, the strange old patient appeared again in a mysterious and barbaric look. The only slipper under his foot seemed to be house slippers, but it didn't make any sound. He was walking and trembling. His steps were also very slow and short because his health seemed to be very weak. He walked with heavy steps because his whole body seemed to be uncontrolled. It swayed unsteadily. He went to the door of the stairs, pushing it with force. The sound of the door pulling echoed throughout the dark hospital corridor. He walked down step by step like a person who had just lost all his soul. He went towards the main hall of the hospital. At that time, the lights in the main hall had turned off. The whole space was very quiet. On the wall, the clock was already past 1 a.m. In the middle of the hall, the nurse on the duty that night was sitting to arrange a pile of papers and medical records to hand over to the next day's shift. The young nurse was very attentive. Her eyes did not leave the documents for a second. She worked hard to take notes and do calculations. In the distance, a dark shadow was walking heavy steps towards her without her noticing. When the black shadow was no longer far from her, the approaching footsteps also sounded more and more clear. She stopped her work and looked up. The man in front of her kept walking calmly. Looking at his appearance and outfit, she assumed that he must be an absent-minded elderly patient. Seeing that someone came to bother her at this time, she was very upset. She didn't look up at the old man in front of her. She waited for him to take out a piece of paper. Then he put his paper on the desk and asked her to check if the prescription was correct. Before she received the paper, the terrible smell from the old man's body made her cough so violently. She covered her nose with one hand, took the paper from the old man with the other, and told him to stay away from her desk a bit. She took the paper, but as soon as she touched it, the coldness of its surface made her want to withdraw her hand. After that, she put the paper on the desk and then waited until the smell from the old man's body was gone before starting to work. She looked at the paper and read each word carefully. It was indeed a prescription, but the patient's name startled her. She read and reread his patient's name. The feeling was so familiar that it surprised her. She tried to remember. Earlier, she had heard many people say that there was a very critical emergency patient in the heart department. He was an old man who had a heart attack. Although the doctors tried to save him, he did not survive. The nurse remembered this detail, and suddenly she felt cold throughout her body. Her hands trembled and lost the feeling. She slowly looked up at the patient who was standing opposite her. The man's face appeared in front of her. She looked closely at this face and screamed in fear. That was exactly the patient who died from a heart attack earlier. His eyes lit up when he looked at her. He moved closer and closer to her. This man slammed his hands on the desk and kept calling her name. His voice echoed throughout the wide hospital hall, which made the nurse almost faint. He kept begging her to check his prescription. Meanwhile, the layers of his skin also began to decompose, peel off, and felt on the desk, which looked very scary. After a while, the old man suddenly stopped talking, but those bright eyes were still staring at the nurse. The nurse at that moment could not control her fear, so she immediately shouted, stood up, and ran away. Hearing the screams, another nurse on the shift rushed out from the break room to see what happened. Her colleague just arrived and saw her falteringly pointing forward. Her mouth did not open. There was an elderly patient in front of the desk. She immediately came to intervene. But when she got there, his face scared her. When she looked at him closely, the female colleague realized that it was the pass-away patient that she treated in the emergency room. The horrifying truth made both nurses unable to control their fear, so they shouted at that same time to wake up the whole hospital, which startled everyone. Hearing the loud screams of the nurses, the hospital guards from their rooms also rushed up to check, but when they got there, the story took a different turn. 2 security guards ran after the screams, went to the main hall of the hospital and used flashlights to shine inside. Both of them tried calling loudly, but there was no answer inside. When entering, the security guard saw one female nurse fainted on the ground. No one knew what is the cause of her fainting. The other nurse had a pale face and a blank expression. She was still sitting on a chair and muttering to herself. After saying that she had seen a ghost, she fainted. The 2 security guards didn't understand what was going on. They hurriedly brought 2 nurses to the emergency room to check. After waking up, the female nurse who had sat in the main hall had a problem with her mental health. She was always in a state of panic. She always said that she had met a ghost and asked people around for help, but no one knew what the beginning of the story was. The other female nurse was so shocked about what happened the previous night that she could not keep her life and died the next morning. The body that the doctors were looking for was also found at the bottom of the stairs leading to the morgue. It looked like the body had fallen from above. In the end, these events made the nurse so obsessed that she had to quit her job and undergo psychiatric treatment for a while. She later learned that because of the unfortunate nurse's negligence, the old patient had had a heart attack and died without anyone knowing. This horror story was very popular at the hospital where I worked as an intern for a long time. Today, it is still an obsession with the people on night duty.